Hi everybody, welcome back to our show, All Things Autism and More. I'm here with Claire and Irene, and today we would like to discuss what next. So you've gotten a diagnosis and you found that your child has autism. What next? If you're joining us for the very first time, you're very, very welcome. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for when we upload any more new episodes.
So yes, we're going to talk about what next. This diagnosis has come. You've been told your child, 2 years old, 3, 4, 5, 6, at whatever stage. What next? And we're going to share from our experiences, what we've been through, and what has worked, and what would be best to do. Ladies, can we be real? Can we start? Yes, Irene.
Yes, so the what next. I'll talk about what the what next looked like for me as Irene. Of course, when you hear of the diagnosis and you're told that your child is on the spectrum, the first thing you ask yourself is, what is autism? So you want to understand more. And I recall at the time, everybody who talked to me about autism kept on telling me, he is never going to be like a regular child. This is how he's going to be. He may never be able to speak. Like, you get a lot of confusion that comes into your mind, into your head, and you get totally lost. And it's at that point where you think about, why me? Why did this happen to me? Why is it my child? I had so many dreams about this child, and this is what has happened. So, of course, the best thing is not to do this on your own. The first is to engage your family, because that is the nearest people that you can talk to. So you engage your family and tell them about it, but you also speak to the medical people.
I mean, let me first cut you short there. Sorry, we'll come back there. So for somebody who might be watching us for the first time, just let us remind ourselves, how old was your child, your son, when you got that diagnosis? And you were saying people were telling you he will always be like this. What did that look like that they were telling you he was going to be like forever?
Okay, so we got the diagnosis when he was 2 years old. And like I had mentioned in the earlier episodes, he wasn't responding to his name, and he was not verbal at the time. So what the thoughts that went through my mind were, is he never going to say mommy, for example? That was my wish then, I remember, because I was like, at least let him call me mommy. At least, for the very least, if he can't speak, at least let me hear him say mommy. I remember that was my goal then. Yeah. So it was, it is a very, very dark moment for any mother or any parent, for that matter. It's a dark moment that any parent can go through. And my advice would be never to go through it alone. People are always there. There are people who have been through this, and it is best to find those people who can support you. So how did I do this? I reached out, first of all, through the doctor who gave me the diagnosis, who recommended a speech therapy center in Mulago. So they had just started training the first speech therapists then. So I reached out to, there were some volunteers there that were helping the children. I mean, helping us families and how to cope with our children. And then it is from there that I was introduced to a support group that used to meet at All Saints Cathedral back then. Yes. So these parents had older children, and somehow they had formed a small community for themselves, and we would meet every month on a Saturday, have our prayers, and then talk about our issues. I recall the first meeting I had, and I listened to one of the parents, and the mother was like, you know, my son is, I think that time the son was 12 years, and the son was nonverbal. And she was speaking about it so calmly. Tears just rolled down my face. I was like, how can somebody go through this? But I think as I went along and kept on engaging them, it helped me to come to a point of acceptance. And through also this engagement, I got some literature to read about and to know what autism is all about. And it's in that process, you know, in that time, I kept on saying, but no, there must be something out there. There must be something good for my son. Then I met a colleague who also happened to have a child with autism. And how did we connect? We also connected through the Department of Speech Therapy in Mulago. So this therapist told her, but at that time I was working in MTN. So this therapist told her, but I have another parent I'm working with who also works in MTN. And we knew each other so well, but we did not know. We had not talked about it, yes. So we didn't know. And she was like, oh my God, I can't believe, Irene, you're going through this. And I also had the same to say about her. Then she told me about a program called the Sunrise Program. She just told me, go to this website and just follow this. And at that point is when I remember that afternoon I didn't work. I was just on that website. I kept on watching the videos, and I saw this person speaking to me and saying, oh, is your child nonverbal? Is your child having repetitive behavior? Is your child doing this, doing the other? And then, to my surprise, he says, I was that child. And a ray, you know, like a sun ray just popped all over me. I was like, this is it. This is what I've been looking for. Thank you, Lord. I have found this. So anyway, we will talk more about therapies and about the Sunrise program, but that is what I went for, and this is where we are now, really. So basically, when you've just had, I think to sum it all is you need to get people who have been through it to help lift you up and bring you to that point of acceptance. And more importantly, not to lose hope. Yeah.
I think that's very interesting and very, very good. And I hope somebody out there has picked that don't do it alone. Don't now go into hiding. Reach out. And I think in this day and age of social media, there's so many places, even if you don't want to say anything or come out physically, but on social media, on WhatsApp, on Facebook, Instagram, even if they are not local, there are many global communities that one can join. Ask your questions anonymously or whatever, but find a group to support you on this journey. Patricia.
It's so emotional listening to your story.
Yes,
it's almost like I haven't been through it. Do you understand? Like everybody's experience is different. So even when I hear your story, I'm like, gosh, that must have been heavy. So I said a bit about my story last time. My son, Harvey, he turns 10 in September. We found out that he had autism just shy of 2 years old, so about like 1 year and 8 months. And my experience was completely different from Irene's, as always the case is. I did not look out for people or for similar scenarios that I was going through, because I already had, incidentally, I already had some very close family friends of mine that had a son with autism. So those would have been my very first go-tos. But when I got the news, I first hid. So I guess I'm speaking to that parent that hides in the beginning. I first hid, and I think it was because I didn't know anything about autism as a condition. I did not know how I was supposed to carry on. This is my first child. I was about 24 years old. I didn't really have much in the department of handling challenges. I wasn't very good at that. So my coping mechanism at first was to educate myself. So I started, of course, with the search engines on what is autism. So after understanding that, the good thing with the internet is that you're able to get more and more literature if you decide to go into a deep dive of research. And because most of my family members, by this time, they had already been notified, at least my close family members and friends. So they were kind enough to buy me books, and I'll put links on the books. There's a book called Neurotribes. It's really, really good. It helped me understand the history of autism. If you're somebody like me, in order to understand something, I needed to understand where it came from. Has it always been there? Is it just happening to my child, or is it like an epidemic or something? And what I really loved about especially Neurotribes and other pieces of literature was I was able to understand the chronology of this thing called autism. It has always been there, first of all. That's one thing I can confirm here. It has always been there, but it just had different names. It looked different to everybody. And reading all of this helped me. And the reason I bring this side of how I coped is because I know that there are different parents who take in the information differently, especially when you have two people, that is mother and father, dealing with the information that your child has been diagnosed with autism. My son's father had a completely different way of coping with it, and mine was to just kind of put myself in a, cocoon, so to speak, until I could actually understand what I was dealing with. So I'm just here to encourage that mother, that father, that sister, that brother who just needs to first understand what they're dealing with. Sometimes it's comforting when you know that this is something that has been going on for almost, I think, the entire human life. But the understanding of what the condition is what has evolved over time. And it's comforting knowing that, because then you know that it continues to answer the question of whether it was your fault, whether you did something wrong during your pregnancy or anything. It answers those questions. So, research was a huge coping mechanism for me, and teaching myself about the condition. And then later, when I was a little more confident, because I was warmed by this knowledge, then I was able to actually join support groups and also talk about it, because at first I was ashamed and we'll talk about that, I guess, another day, but I was in a cocoon of shame and guilt and all those dark feelings. But when I got that knowledge and I understood that what my son was going through was perfectly normal, had no fault that we know of like anything that we could pinpoint, that helped me to now be confident about sharing his condition and sharing what I was going through. And then when I was speaking out, because I'm getting to a part where introverts or people who keep to themselves, this is how you get the help to then join these other support groups. If you do not speak, if you do not share, people won't assume what you need. So until you get out of that place where you want to just keep it to yourself, and yet you need so much help and so much support, you kind of need to take like a little foot out and just say, okay, I might be ready. And then maybe that will help you, find people who can find you a tribe, basically. Yes. Which is how I met all these ladies, by the way, after coming out of my cocoon. So had I not, I don't think I'd be seated here today. That's true.
I think just to underscore that diagnosis comes with a lot with it. It's the feelings that you feel when you understand that your child is different, the hopes and the dreams and everything that are carried in a simple diagnosis. I think we don't underestimate it. We're not underplaying it, but saying that get support for it. There might also be somebody who doesn't want to join a group, who doesn't want to research. Find one individual, find a space. Now you can find them everywhere and talk to that one person. Irene spoke of the Sunrise program. So together, Irene and I have a center, and we are able to meet people and just talk you through your fears, allay your fears in a safe space. And there are many other people who are doing that. As Patricia has pointed out, now the research has grown, people are speaking more about it. So there are more spaces that you can access and find, even if it's one person, to say, okay, this is where I am. It is only you I can talk to. Some people may not want yet to speak to family. They may not want to open up yet. What do you do? Because it's heavy. It really is heavy. And true, partners in a relationship might respond differently. So where you're expecting, hey, my husband will carry it for me. He doesn't want even to talk about it at that point. Oh, my wife, she doesn't also want to talk about it. So you're dealing differently with it. Find one person and talk to them. I know here in this country, and maybe it's our cultural socialization, we talk, I'm trying to avoid the word counseling and therapy. You don't have to do that, but those who can, find somebody to talk to for yourself and deal with what shows up. I think
I think let's talk more about the partner bit. Okay. You know, sometimes you will think that your partner is not cooperative or not understanding, but I think we must understand that everybody takes this news to them differently, in a different way. So your partner's reaction or your reaction will be totally different, and we should not be judging of them. Because just as you're lost, so is your partner. So we have to be in position to understand, that this is a big load on you, and so it is on your partner. Yes, so we have to be in position to understand them, and if they are not yet at the level where you want them to be, start, and you never know they will follow. But let's not be judging, because again, it will have an impact, not just on you and your child, but also on your relationship. Yeah.
It's true. I think that's very important. Thanks, Irene, that we should extend grace, extend one another grace. If the person is not ready to discuss it, it is okay. Move, do what you can within your own power. And when they're ready, they'll catch up to you. They may or they may not. But the important thing in this is the child, I think. At the end of the day, how do you support the child? Because early intervention, doing something earlier is better than waiting. So the opportunity has presented itself. You've found out, what do you do next? I think that's when we're going to now you know, you've talked to somebody. After that, you start on the interventions. So what sort of intervention? You spoke about speech, yeah?
Well, you will not go straight into speech. I know, people think that a child will speak, or that is your wish list. Your wish list is you want to hear your child speak overnight. But we do not look at just speech. We are looking at an all-encompassing communication, mode of communication, mode of social interaction. So when you think about speech, that shouldn't be the first goal that you set for your child. You're going to look at how is your child able to communicate. You look at simple things that can help the child learn to communicate to you. If it starts with holding your hand and taking you to whatever it is that they need you to give them, then that alone is already communication. So you take it step by step. And the best way is, maybe we'll talk about that when we are talking about the home environment, but you look at the things that are in their surrounding. Like what we did, we took pictures of the things that surrounded the common things, the food he eats, the bathroom where he goes to have his bath, the bed where he goes to rest. We took pictures of all those things. And you take the pictures of what he uses, the real actual things. Don't draw. Because then he is able to relate. And at that time, you're like, okay, maybe he's crying, he's asking for something. You'll show him, do you want this? Do you want that? And step by step, they learn to communicate, they learn to engage you through pictures. That is what we use. We started off with those picture communication before we could build on to bringing up verbal speech. Yeah.
This question really, it kind of fogs my brain because there are so many interventions. I think we spoke on some of them last time.
Yes.
Some of them are a bit quack. Others are actually realistic. I think one of the major things that we did was, just, to hint on it, one of the major things we did was we changed our diet, we changed our nutrition. We also learned to manage our expectations. So in terms of, I'm probably like skipping, I don't know how many levels by going to that. But the reason I'm saying that is because when the therapists came in, I think Irene is nicer than me generally. Most of the therapists that saw my son, I wanted immediate results. Like, tell me, if I keep telling him the word food for at least a week, he will say food. And my son started to speak at 5 years old. So that was a very long waiting period of about 3 years. For some, it's even longer. But one of the things that I needed to learn was that this was a lifelong condition. And so regardless of whether I was using an intervention that was by way of therapy or changing my home or anything, I needed to be patient with the process and with my son. So we used therapy, speech therapy, but I think one of the bigger things was pets.
Oh, wow.
And funny enough, it's not I who provided the pets, it was my aunt. Wow. So my aunt has some goats. Oh, wow. And she has a farm, like a small farm in her home. And Harvey is really, really good at consistent things. So this is when I understood what the animal therapy aspect of things was. Animals, like any other living things, need to have a routine so that they can survive, right? They eat at this time, they go to sleep at this time, and what. And my aunt put Harvey in charge of some of the goats.
Oh, wow.
And that brought him out of his shell, so to speak. So everything else that we were teaching him, whether it was a speech therapy, whether it was, trying to convince him to eat better or anything, he started to understand that the world is out there. He came out of his shell because of these goats that he was looking after. So I think animal therapy is obviously something that we'll talk about another time in greater length, but it was something that also worked for us along with the other therapies, which was speech and occupation. I don't think we did a lot of occupational, but I'll let you explain what that even means.
I think we will have to dedicate a segment to discussing these interventions, the therapies. So we'll have to come back to that. For today, I think we were just highlighting what should be your immediate things that you do.
There's hope.
Yeah, there's hope. I think we just wanted to say that there's hope once you get the diagnosis, but it starts with you managing yourself. Getting information, finding a support system. I mean, we can go into depth again about the support network. It might be your pastor, it might be your mother, it might be a sister, a friend, can be somebody neutral, somebody that will encourage you and hold your hand, because it is not a momentary thing. It's almost a journey that is a continuous journey until you are steady and okay and resolved within your feet. So we will continue our discussion. I think in our next episode, we'll go deeper into some of these interventions. What do they mean? Where do you start? But I think importantly, if you get comfortable within yourself, manage your expectations, but above all, manage yourself, because in that instance, it is the child that needs the help. If you're not okay, you will not help the child. So it's important to be fine, to be okay. So have hope. As Irene was sharing, she watched a video that gave her hope. I know many parents who've had that experience, or even just hearing another parent say, my child spoke.
Yeah.
And that encourages you and uplifts you so much.
Especially after the doctor has said they'll never speak.
Exactly. When a doctor has said they'll never speak, or they will not walk, or they will not do whatever, and another parent says no, even if it's at age 9 or 10, you will see a result. So we hope that by us sharing these stories and speaking, one parent, two parents will get some hope that their child, it is not a death sentence, this diagnosis.
No.
There is hope, and your child will do. Maybe not as much as you thought, but they will astound you. Children on the spectrum do amazing things that you didn't think they were capable of. So let's not discount them. And as a parent, don't discount yourself and say, I can't manage. You can do it. We are here to encourage you.
All I can say is, for as long as there's intervention, you will see their results for it. Their results. It will not. The situation will not remain the same. There will always be something better. So intervention, without saying, is a must. It's a must, and of course, the parent should always have hope, have this faith, and believe in their child. And you'll be amazed at how much these children can do. Yeah.
Well, I would really be echoing what both of you have said, and I'll just keep it short. The best way to get over it is through it.
That's true. Yes.
That's all I'll say.
Yes, there's no other way. So thank you for listening and joining us again for this show. Please join us again when we take a deeper dive and look into what interventions would be done. We'll share from our experiences and also what best practice there is from our research and our reading. So once again, click, subscribe, like, and put comments in the field.
Engage with us,
Engage,
please.
yes.
Okay. See you next time.
Thank you. Bye.